The things that no one sees are the moments when I am literally climbing into a hospital bed with a woman in labor and holding her and telling her she's safe and she is doing an incredible job, and watching like them persevere through some of their most challenging moments and stepping into motherhood with so much grace and grit, and being able to witness that and have even a small role in it. Truly, like, again, it's not the external thing.
This show is sponsored by Sevi, answering all your commercial real estate needs. Sevi is the first commercial real estate company committed to the 4 C's: commercial real estate, community, content, and culture. Go visit Sevi at Sevi, SEVI, properties.com. Again, SeviProperties.com.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the DMV Business Show. I'm your host, Otto Sevilla, and today I have a very special guest for you. We have Kaitlyn Wozniak. Kaitlyn is also known as the Fit Doula. She's a DC-based Maryland and Northern Virginia intimacy educator, embodiment coach, and wellness entrepreneur. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you.
Of course, pleasure's all mine. So in case someone's hearing and they're like, okay, fit, depending on the audience, they're like, doula. What is that? So what exactly is a fit doula?
Yeah, so birth doula, I'm a birth doula. There are many versions of doulas that exist, but I specifically work with women in pregnancy and childbirth. And the name does not really lend itself to a clear definition. There's a lot of misconception or misunderstanding, but a doula, in essence, as it relates to birth, we support women in childbirth, and women have been surrounding other women in birth since the beginning of time. Not really a new concept, though it has become a little bit more prevalent on social media and in the media more recently. And I think there's a common, I think a lot of people kind of define it as an advocate for you in birth, but I like to define it more as kind of like your birth coach or your birth cheerleader.
And so the doula goes to you wherever you decide to give birth. Is that how it is?
Yeah. So a lot of people think birth doulas only support home birth. I will say in the DMV, that tends to be more rare. I think we have a lot of women who, and even across the country, the greater majority of women are delivering babies in hospitals. Home birth is beautiful in its own way, but I also really love supporting birth in the hospitals. In the DMV, I think there's a particular need to have an advocate, an education, and support within the hospital structure, because it's not always equipped to support women or really prioritize women and baby because of the many systemic issues that exist within the medical birth complex.
Would you say majority of the births are at home or at a hospital that you do?
Most are in the hospital. So
Okay.
I think that the data is always moving, right? I don't know what the exact percentage is now, but it's something around 94% of women are delivering babies in hospitals in the
Mhm.
US. And I think that number is particularly higher in DC and the surrounding area, where women are more likely to start their families a little bit later. And a lot of that is for career purposes or just choice.
Mhm.
And so because of that, and I also think DC just tends to be a little bit more comfortable delivering in a hospital versus laboring at home, where they don't have as many reassurances within the home. At least I hear that from women at their internalized, thought process around home birth.
Sure. So what does a doula exactly do?
So every doula can run their business a little differently. It's not
Mhm.
as structured as some other careers. But for many of us, we offer childbirth education throughout the woman's pregnancy. And what is most well known or, familiar to people is the actual labor and delivery support. So we show up when our clients are in labor, support them physically and emotionally, and sometimes act as a liaison between the medical team and the family themselves, and help women as they bring their babies into the world. I think a big part of it is also really kind of safeguarding her emotional experience and hormonal experience, because a mom's job in that moment should really just to be going inward, being attuned with her body and meeting her baby. And oftentimes women kind of have to walk into a labor and delivery room, particularly in a hospital, really guarded and protecting their preferences for their birth or advocating for their needs and desires. And so a doula can come in and really offload the logistical things so that a mom can really tap into her oxytocin and into her body and really just be present with that experience.
Okay, I see. That's great. Can't wait to get into how you even thought about becoming a doula. But before that, Kaitlyn, I'd like the audience to get to know you a little bit personally. Are you originally from the DMV area?
I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland.
Okay.
Yeah, moved to DC in 2009. I went to American University where I initially studied journalism. Then I switched to studying psychology and I fell in love with the city. I never wanted to leave. And then I bopped all over the DMV. I worked in the fitness world after I did a short stint in mental health. I just am too I'm a Sagittarius stellium. So for those of you who don't know, I am a very active human and sitting still all day was not for me. So I took my passion for helping women heal their relationship with movement, food, and body, and took that into the fitness community where I taught group fitness and have been a personal trainer for many, many years, not to age myself. And I have, I've lived all over the DMV, but more notably, I serve the entire DMV community when it comes to my career and helping women.
That's great. So you said you grew up in Baltimore. Was that in the city or outside the city and the county?
Outside the city and the county,
Okay.
um, had a high school job in Baltimore City. I thought it was real cool.
Yeah, makes you
But it was
tough.
an ice cream shop, so it wasn't that cool. But I was like, yeah, I worked in Baltimore.
So growing up in Baltimore County, if I can just briefly take you back there, as a child, what were you into? Any extracurricular activities, or what did you like back then?
So I was really timid as a child, which is probably hard to believe where I am now. But I was very shy, very timid. I loved to dance, and I loved ballet. Also ironic because I'm just not a very graceful human. But I loved dance, and I wound up in high school loving field hockey and became a
Okay.
more evolved into, like, my relationship with, like, fitness and movement. I also did a brief stint in pageants, so I competed in pageants for quite a while, which on one
Beauty
hand.
pageants?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I don't usually lead with that, but it does make sense in that for as many of its flaws that industry has, it did teach me a lot about how to connect with people and feel more confident doing so and really finding my voice, which helped me like become a little bit more get a little bit closer to the version of myself that I was able to grow into.
Yeah, especially if you said growing up as a child you were timid. Were you the only child, or did you have any siblings growing up?
I have a little sister.
Okay.
I'm the oldest, and I have a big family, or at least growing up, I was surrounded by a lot of family. And my family, my dad is Cherokee. His side of my family is from Oklahoma. My mom's side of the family is from West Virginia. A lot of big family energy.
Okay.
So I don't know. I think in many ways I was very type A. I was very insecure. And my whole journey with my personal evolution moved through an eating disorder and a lot of really big struggles to offload a lot of that and heal a lot of that. But I will say that motherhood uh, is one of the greatest exposure therapies for type A personalities. So in addition to all the like work that I did through, just investing in my own healing and self-work, I do think this is a big passion I'm sure we'll get into, but motherhood
Mhm.
really like pushed me to really like release a lot so that it could expand me and amplify me in ways that I didn't think were possible.
Was your eating disorder through your pageant career, or was it separate times?
It I got introduced to dieting when I was 13 years old. I was in high school.
Okay.
I had not yet started back in pageants. I did pageants when I was a child.
Oh, so you did pageants earlier than that.
Yeah. So
Okay.
in pageants when I was a toddler. And one day I just said, I don't like this. I don't want to do it. And to her credit, she said, okay, we're done. But she saw me be this kind of insecure, quiet, timid child that like didn't have a lot of security in myself. And she brought the idea to me to compete in Miss Maryland Teen USA. And I agreed to do it. And I do think that the thing with eating disorders, like many mental health illnesses, a lot of genetics are really at the root of it. And then there's the sociocultural conditions around it that can trigger or exacerbate the illness itself. And we know that we are a generation riddled with body image hyperfixation and a lot of misinformation around food. There's a lot of we did a lot of legwork to heal a lot of that and change the narrative, but now we're kind of seeing this shift back with all of the GLP-1s and all the things. But at the time, the Atkins diet was huge. Everyone around me, every adult I knew was on it. That was a snowball effect for me. I started dieting at 13 years old, which sounds really shocking to a lot of people, but even worse is that there are children as young as 6 years old who start to become really hyper aware of their bodies and how people perceive them and develop eating disorders. And the pageant world, to answer your question, maybe wasn't the trigger, but it certainly didn't help. So while my relationship with my body and food was not helped by that industry, I do, like I said previously, give it some credit for the way that I was able to evolve in other ways with my sense of self.
Sure. With every industry, there's always the good and the bad, right? And I know you were just mentioning as far as pageant not being helpful, but I'm sure it helped as far as taking you out of your shell because you mentioned you were much timid younger. Did it help you in that way at least?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I worked with coaches also to work. I mean, most people who compete pageants have a pageant coach of some sort, but even just meeting with different people to practice, interview coaching or going to, group sessions and interacting with other girls and women and being able to see like diversity in women who are kind of pigeonholed in the pageant industry. And that's not to like victimize women in beauty pageants by any means. I think I even had my own you know, stereotypes or misconceptions and I think just being in different environments for me where I was always kind of in my own little bubble. My point really is that it really pushed me to expand my horizons and I had to put myself out there and meet new people and meet new friends who had never been around before. Despite my big family, my friend group was really small and insular. And so it encouraged me to have the confidence to meet other women and connect with other girls and find even just like the way I had to carry myself, right? And project myself as more confident. And sometimes with self work and self efficacy and being embodied, there's a little bit of it that's like fake it till you make it, right? The more
Hmm.
you flex that, the more it becomes a part of your identity. And I do think that part really made such a difference for me in that season of my life.
Yeah. It just reminds me, Caitlin, a little bit of me growing up. As a child, I had my group of friends, of course, but I was always sort of more into myself. And I remember my mother would tell me, she would knock on the door in my bedroom. She's like, "What are you doing? You're just in your room go out, go do something, go talk to friends." I'm like, "No, I'm fine, mom." But what helped me was sort of sales. For you it was maybe a little bit pageant, but for me, then my teenage years, one of my first jobs was retail. So customer service, just walking up to total strangers and asking how you can be of any help, or do you need help with color or size or whatever it may be. And then at one point, after several years doing it, I became one of like the top salespeople on the sales floor. I was back a couple years back. I was just in my bedroom, just happy, just in my shell. And then all of a sudden, I think for me was sales. Like for you, maybe the pageant helped you, but for me was sort of just my first couple of jobs in sales and just being out there and just like, hey, these are your goals and learning.
Absolutely. In this similar vein, right? It's again, it's like that flexing that muscle. The more you do,
Hmm.
you're like, oh, I did that. Like I could do that again, right? Or people
Yeah.
perceived me in a way that like I didn't expect them to. And that builds confidence, right? And then more and more over time, like your just sense of self is a little bit more concrete. I worked in sales myself at Equinox for a little while at the beginning of my fitness career, while I was studying for my personal training certification. I joked that I was terrible at sales because I was like, I just love to yap with people at that point,
Okay.
grown in my own self, right? And
Yeah.
I would just sit there talking to people, and I'm like, listen, if you like the gym, join. If you don't, who am I to tell you?
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, I'm like, I don't shut up. I just love to yap with people about who they are. I'm like, I don't know why they let me stay in sales for so long.
You mentioned you went to AU. So American University is in DC. Did you know right away as far as what you wanted to do and major in?
So I started at AU as a journalism major.
Okay.
This is a little bit of a funny story. I went to American University, arguably the most political university in the country. They have a phenomenal journalism program. I wanted to go into like entertainment news.
Okay.
There's there's nothing
Yeah.
to, for someone who at the time, and I look back, I'm like, I would have hated that. But I went to college when I was 17. I had been in and out of treatment for my eating disorder. I did not have a true sense of like who I would become, because who does at 17? I was in such a transitional space and still healing in many ways. I just was like, I compete in pageants and this looks like fun, and I watch e-news after school. But throughout my freshman year of college, I made a lot of progress in my eating disorder recovery. I was finally out of my hometown. I had a lot of newfound autonomy. Again, I was really starting that process of finding my true self and my voice. And I started several different programs on campus to help young women in their recovery process through mentoring and some body image workshops. And then I realized, like, I obviously, when I am truly healed and that healing is super important, obviously. But that's when I decided to switch to study psychology. And I wanted to initially go into clinical counseling, working with young girls with eating disorders.
Wow. So these groups you established, this was all during college, right?
Yeah,
That's great.
freshman to sophomore year.
Okay. Okay. And how was that process? Was it pretty easy to just start these groups and gather different people or?
Well, I built a connection with the wellness center on campus and realized that they had a body image like group organization, like a body image, like kind of a support group, if you will. And the person who ran the program didn't really he wanted it to be bigger, right? He wanted to expand it, make it bigger. And I was like, I can be your girl.
Oh,
I
that's
can be.
great.
Um, I have always been very open about my journey with my health and my mental health. And I had no shame in sharing my story. I've always believed that when we share our stories and we can be, and obviously within our own, again, like healing in our own time, and as much as we feel safe to do so, sharing our truth and sharing our experiences truly helps other people, because none of us suffer alone, right? There's always other people who are living through something similar. And then in sharing our truth, we can inspire other people and help other people to receive the help and care that they need. And so I was just like, yeah, let's do it. So we expanded on the body image program, started a mentorship coaching group that the person who ran the program and I also launched the first ever National Eating Disorders Association walk in DC that started on campus.
Wow.
And then over the next 2 years, we expanded it to the National Mall. And then I also started within the AU psychology department. Shouldn't say built, but I established the first connection with our internship program with a local eating disorder recovery organization. So there's a lot of work that went into it. It surely wasn't easy, but I found so much purpose in that. And that has always been the driving force for me to help other people in one way, shape, or form.
So did you end up graduating from AU with the psychology degree or?
Yeah. Yes, I
Okay.
did. I graduated the degree in psychology. I worked at a nonprofit organization in Petworth for a little while after college. And that's kind of simultaneously, I was also working at a group fitness studio in Bethesda. And that's where I was like, I was sitting at this desk all day. I'm not serving myself or these people as well as I can, right? And I also saw this niche space or this bridge that was not being filled between eating disorder recovery. You get to like weight restoration. You get kicked out if insurance hasn't already done so. And there's not really infrastructure to help people maintain or establish a healthy relationship with nutrition and movement from that point forward. So many people tend to relapse when they try to reintegrate those things. So for me, I was like, I love fitness. I'm in this group fitness space. I'm simultaneously working in psychology, but there's this whole need for someone in the in between to help
Hmm.
people kind of step through that transitional process. And that was kind of what I set out for to do for a long time.
Okay. So you found this niche and you're like, okay, did you like, where am I going to get the people? Or did you already have a base to maybe go to?
Well, I had access to, a significant amount of people through working at this group fitness studio.
Hmm.
So I was in front of an audience and I was able to kind of use messaging right in my classes to communicate with people, just have a healthier narrative around moving our bodies and food instead of some of the toxic fitness language of like, summer's coming or like, the icky stuff. I wanted to create a voice in the fitness space that was more empowering and uplifting and removed all the numbers and the nonsense of just moving our bodies to burn calories and to be thin, and really switch the script a little bit. And that's when I started working for Equinox. I studied for my personal training certification, and it kind of like spiraled from there. It was like an organic shift of like being embedded in the DMV community, having worked in sales, so I knew a lot of the members. So then I had a little bit more access to people to kind of kickstart my personal training business too.
Okay. And how was that initial experience for you?
Which part?
Starting off, like for obviously you're training people, right? But now you found this sort of niche area, like, okay, let me also do this.
Yeah. Well, I will say, and this is one part of my answer, but I do think it's relevant to both being a personal trainer, being a doula. There are a lot of people in service based professions, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. You pass the certification, you get this expensive piece of paper that says, I'm certified, but you don't
Hmm.
really know anything, right? It's like, oh, I memorized this textbook and I passed this test. And as someone with ADHD, I'm like, yeah, I'll memorize a textbook the night before. I'll take that. And obviously, I invested a lot of that's hyperbolic and in jest, but you study all this stuff, you take an exam and you pass a test, but you don't have the practical application, right?
Hmm.
The person in front of you who is a whole human and bio individual and unique. But I do think that while I was puzzle piecing all these things together and learning how to work with people and build personal training programs, the thing that I really do hold, I think what was super valuable in my time working with those people, even though I was like novice and still figuring out the real life application, was the psychology background that allowed me to truly connect with people, give people a safe space to be able to feel safe and confident and comfortable, to be seen as not just a dollar sign, but as a human, and truly build rapport, because that is ultimately what we all want, right? We all want human connection. And so I think while it was challenging and it's in many ways, I will say that the one lesson that truly stuck with me from that to what I do now is deep human connection and seeing people for who they are and giving them a safe space to, express their needs, not only physical needs, but also emotional as well.
Yeah, that's great. So then you continued being a coach for a while then. I mean, you're still doing that now. How did the doula part come about?
So organically over time, I always wanted to work with women and young girls, athletes. And so I was really niche in the personal training world, working with women. And then a lot of my clients were becoming pregnant. And I realized that many of them, or for, many of the certifications, I should say, that I was doing for pre and postnatal, I was like, surely this is not all there is to it. Like it's a lot of fear mongering, a lot of misinformation, and a lot of outdated practices and concepts. Like, just don't let her lay on her back, right? I'm like, for something that is so powerful and magnificent and miraculous as building human life, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
surely we can do better to empower women in their bodies that are capable of so much, but we're treating them like they need to be bubble wrapped. So I took it upon myself to truly like dive deep into pre and postnatal certifications, education, corrective exercise, and just steadily niched into pre and postnatal personal training. And around the same time, I also got pregnant with my son, was able to learn a lot by personal application. And then in 2020, that fateful year, a lot of us, but especially the fitness industry, for a lot of us shifted to remote coaching. And I had so much more access to so many more women all across the country. It was a really overwhelming time, but really freaking cool, because I was like, oh, I left this job that I had for 6+ years that I thought I was like swimming in the Kool-Aid. But I became a mom and I walked away from it and I started my own thing and had access to all these women who I could help be empowered in their bodies and motherhood. But a lot of the women that came to me postpartum expressed the same thing of physical and emotional birth trauma, whether it was physical trauma with pelvic floor trauma or having an unresolved diastasis, which is your abdominal separation. But the emotional, and I knew how to fix that, right? I was like, I got you there. But the emotional trauma was like, what is going on? Right? What is happening in the birth space? And I had a cesarean delivery with my son, and I didn't know any different at the time. I wasn't a doula then. I was young. I was 27. I joked that I was a teen mom. In the DMV, I mentioned this earlier, women tend to start their families later.
Yep.
And I was one of the first of my friends in my community to have a baby. So I realized the misinformation that I had been given, and saw a lot of women who were coming to me for support expressing similar scenarios. And that really was the catalyst for me. It's like kind of similar to bridging the gap between eating disorder recovery and fitness.
Mm-hmm.
There was this space here of supporting women in the physical perinatal season, of training their pregnant body to fortify their pregnancy, to help them have smoother, more efficient labors, to recover faster postpartum, help them rehab postpartum. But these two worlds are colliding, of building that rapport and supporting women in that functional fitness space, but also being able to support them and teach them, guide them, I should say, of here are your rights and options as a person who is birthing in a hospital space. Here's how to flex your autonomy. Here's how to advocate for what you want. Here are the risks and benefits, all these you know, interventions in birth. To me, it was just a seamless, organic funnel.
Kaitlyn, let's say to the mother listening to not mother, to the future mother listening to this, and maybe she's pregnant and maybe she's a couple months away. What would you recommend for her to, I guess, coming into her first pregnancy, what to look out for, what to do, what not to do?
I will say, if you don't have the ability or access to hire a doula, absolutely invest in independent, comprehensive childbirth education. That is paramount. As a doula, I lead all of my clients, their partners, through one-on-one childbirth education. I think it's invaluable. We can show up at the bedside and squeeze people's hips and get them ice chips and help comfort them physically and emotionally. But if they don't have the precursor understanding of exactly what happens in labor and delivery, again, the risks and benefits and alternatives and how to advocate for their needs and what can come up, right? There's still a looming question mark over that experience that does not help the process play out as smoothly as it can. And women deserve to walk, and their families deserve to walk into that space with more confidence and clarity, and knowledge. And the other thing I will say too is that, as beautiful as social media can be, and it can be so connecting and build community, and we have access to a lot of education information, there's a lot of misinformation, right? I think that's one big cloud over the perinatal space. Is there's a lot of misinformation, misconception, and with more and more people on social media, there is a little bit of a predatory edge to it, right? There's always someone selling you something. And so I say, like, consume content, but be a critical consumer and try not to consume so much that it strips you of like your innate maternal wisdom. Because that
Hmm.
tends to happen a lot.
Yeah. When she already delivered and maybe she's having issues with her stomach or her abs, what can someone do to try to help mediate that or fix it?
Yeah. So a lot of people, well, most people don't know that diastasis is kind of a buzzword in the perinatal fitness space. It is, again, the separation of the connective tissue of the abdominal muscles. Every pregnancy has a diastasis. It is by
Okay.
design. The connective tissue, the linea alba, it expands. The rectus muscles stretch and expand to make more space for a growing baby, the womb. But it's been demonized and kind of used as this like buzzword. You can prevent diastasis if you buy my program, right? Or I could heal your diastasis before you're 2 weeks postpartum. Those things they're just not true.
Okay.
Every pregnancy has a degree of abdominal separation. And again, it's like truly by design. Your body is brilliant, does these magnificent things. The thing is, if we mismanage pressure within the abdominal cavity throughout pregnancy, because there's again more mass from a baby and amniotic fluid and all these things, more pressure with mismanaged pressure within the intra-abdominal canister, that tissue can be stretched too much and cause an injury to that tissue. So a lot of people will wait until postpartum if they're diagnosed with a prolonged diastasis, for example. And this is also tied to pelvic floor issues because all that pressure it works on both the abdominal wall and the pelvic floor. Most people will wait until postpartum. Like, well, I got diagnosed with this, I'm peeing my pants, or my abs are split, or whatever
Mhm.
their symptoms are, and try to resolve it after the fact. I really advocate for preventative care. So starting in the prenatal season, if at all possible, to tap into the body, understand how to fortify those muscles and use them appropriately so that we can mitigate the risk of postpartum physical trauma, have the tools to rehab sooner than later.
So you can do things before then to sort of prevent. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, and to be fair, because I should acknowledge this too. There are some women who might come across that information. They're like,
Mhm.
okay, well, thanks for telling me now. Here I am postpartum.
Yeah.
Absolutely advocate for pelvic floor physical therapy for anyone, regardless of mode of delivery, because even women who've gone through a cesarean birth, your body has taken on 9 months of growth and gravity and pressure. The pelvic floor is not without, its own vulnerabilities because you've had a C-section. Pelvic floor PT is top priority postpartum for everyone, and working with a truly experienced and knowledgeable coach who can guide you into the right mechanics to help heal the core and pelvic floor. Surgery is very rarely the fix for diastasis and or prolapse or pelvic floor traumas. The research shows us that progressively overloading with the right skill set and the right approach will help repair those muscles and tissues better than just, having a surgeon try to stitch you up.
Are there any exercises or I guess actions someone can take to sort of help out with that?
Yes. A lot of people on social media, on the internet, talk a lot about diaphragmatic breathing, and that truly is the foundation. It's like the starting point, the building blocks of anything else I teach my clients in pre and postnatal training. I have my own like breathwork method that I teach my clients. It is really powerful and it helps people really get into their bodies, really better understand their inner unit, their core, their pelvic floor. It can help prevent pain. It can help people breathe better as their lungs get crowded in pregnancy. It can help people push better with more efficiency. And it helps us better understand the biomechanics at play when we are in labor and giving birth. And from there, I think one thing I will say is there's a lot of language around like pregnancy safe or postpartum safe. I argue that most things can be pregnancy or postpartum safe with the right approach and the right breathing mechanics and the right, muscle connection. there's so few things that are actually really off limits for the perinatal body. It's really about how to add in the right tools to make sure those things can be done safer. And I think when we approach from that lens, there's so many things women can do. Right. There's so many exercises. There are countless exercises, but it really does start with the foundation of understanding that diaphragmatic breathing, really refining the knowledge and mind body connection to the core and the pelvic floor.
Okay. You were mentioning earlier how motherhood was such a big change for you in your life. And the first time you said you became a mother, this was around 2020. So it was around COVID times, right?
And my son was born in June of 2019.
Okay.
So I he was, I guess, technically a bit of a COVID baby. But he had, you would never know it because he's the kid who will like dance on a table at a restaurant and like, you know, just he's the life of the party. Yeah, there's nothing shy about that kid. Which I do see like with other little ones who are, really growing in that season, growing up in that time. He's a wild child. But yes, motherhood kind of similar to the way I approach fitness. The narrative around motherhood is so often, and I will say this, um it is almost always explicitly toward women, but I do think that there's also acknowledgement to be had just for parenting in general. But for women stepping into motherhood, it is almost always talked about how it will strip you of your identity. It is almost always a negative. Your dreams are done, right? Like just you're washed up, you're dead to the world, like stop taking a shower, go to the playground. And I, on one hand, didn't have a choice to sit in that. I had 6 weeks of unpaid maternity leave. I was with my kid. He was going with me to the gym to train my clients. He was going to the childcare at the gym so I could go teach group fitness classes. I was pumping in the locker rooms and in my car. I was virtually by myself
Hmm.
for most of the day and had to work. And so while I disagree with a lot of our parental leave policies, I just had to figure it out. And that shaped my perspective of motherhood in so many ways where I became more and more discerning and empowered. I was more protective of my time, my energy. I also was like, I grew a whole human being. I grew an esophagus in my body. Like I grew tiny toes. I'm unstoppable.
Yeah.
And then I had a 7-layer abdominal surgery and still came back to work and figured it out. So like I just had a lower threshold for anyone who was not reciprocating my energy.
Okay.
And I left a long-term, you know, career and started my own thing. And that also kind of talking about flexing the muscle, the building blocks for me, like I just, motherhood fortified so much of my confidence and it gave me more than it ever took from me.
Yeah. Would you say that during COVID times, that's when you left, right? This stableness that you knew, but now the world opened up for you. So did that help your business?
It did. Yeah. I mean, obviously it was a challenging season for all of us, right? The
Sure.
uncertainty, the fear, isolation, all the things. But I I mean, my business took off faster than I ever could have seen it coming. We were all at home, right?
Hmm.
People were very much so at home that they were having babies a lot all the time.
With all the time.
And I, again, like a lot of fitness moving to a virtual platform, I just had more access to so many people. I had more time to put out Instagram content and reach more people. So my business blew up. And fortunately, and a big passion of mine too, and a big part of the next kind of phase of or vision for the Fit Doula is building the infrastructure that we no longer have. I moved back to Baltimore during that time so that I could be closer to family to help with my son. And then I ultimately had my daughter also. But for many of us, we don't have the village any longer. That was always the thing. It takes a village. And yeah, it does. But when we are in a modern parenting society, a modern mothering society, many of us move to these big metropolitan cities for a career. We chase down these dreams as we should, but that comes with the trade-off of not having family around and not having the village necessarily.
Hmm.
And so we are seeing birth outcomes and we're seeing mental health, challenges postpartum. And again, it's kind of, I think a lot of women started kind of funneling into my orbit because they were experiencing a lot of those things. And so now I'm particularly grateful for all of those women who found me in 2020 and we got through that crazy season together. We were able to kind of build our own little virtual village, so to speak. But they also really inspired me in so many ways to see the need for a new infrastructure for the modern mom in these metropolitan cities.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. We all have, setbacks and failures in life and in business. Many actually, some more than others, right? But what would you say is your favorite setback or failure that you've had, and what'd you learn from that?
Oh gosh. You know, as much as I say like motherhood expanded me and pushed me and like taught me a lot of confidence, I will say that like the burnout was so real. I I mean, I'm kind of with you where I see setbacks and failures like this is a launching pad for growth.
Hmm.
Surely there have been seasons of my life and where I'm like, I can't take one more thing. But what I will say is I think burnout really taught me so much. I try to alchemize everything. It's literally tattooed on my hand. I have an alchemy tattoo. I try to take the negative and find a positive in it. And burnout ultimately affects everything and it leads to other failures, right? It leads to other setbacks, it leads to mistakes. I took on way too much at many points in my career. And oftentimes that either impacted my like my home life, or I wasn't able to serve all my clients as well as I should have. Like I was exhausted at a birth at 3 in the morning and then tried to train my clients at 10 a.m., taking on too much and not having the infrastructure again to like really sustain it, which ultimately taught me again to really prioritize myself, my well-being, and what my clients really need and how they need me to show up. And how my children need me to show up. And it helped me refine and build better boundaries in business, take more time to carve out for myself so that I was living in the same truth that I was, preaching to my clients. And so burnout might seem like a unexpected answer, but I think it just funnels into so much. And it taught me a ton about, again, like being a better business owner, being a better person, being a better mom, and the things that the importance of self-care as a business owner.
You were just mentioning now as far as, having boundaries. Have you done something differently as far as maybe now I do this and I used to do that, or I would be working at this time, or what changed?
Well, I will say I'm a night owl. I
Okay.
am not a morning girl. While some people might like, I know a lot of people are like, well, I close my laptop at 6 p.m. and I don't, I'm like, I was working like 11 o'clock at night because like that's where I do my best work. My kids are in bed, like,
Hmm.
I'm like, whew, I can focus. I will say I used to, especially just given how deeply personal my work is as a personal trainer, yes, but especially as a doula and childbirth educator. I used to have really loose contracts that I was like, it feels so icky to make this so business oriented, right? And
Hmm.
but that ultimately harmed it. I wouldn't say harmed. It just like wasn't sustainable.
Sure.
It's confusion for the client. There were messy lines for me and boundaries and not feeling respected in my time and the burnout again kind of like funneled into that. And so I realize that like ultimately it's not about it just being this like transactional thing. It's really there to protect myself and my clients. And that was a huge boundary for me that I had to accept and implement was really like sticking to a better constructed contract that served everyone. And then also as my kids have gotten older, I've tried to take fewer clients on the doula lens per month because we're on call a lot. For every doula client, I'm on call from 38 to 42 weeks, and my volume is up all night. If they're in labor, I got to go. It doesn't matter if it's my kid's birthday or a holiday or a school performance. So as my kids have gotten older, I have tried to build in more off-call time and really just prioritize being present with them. That sometimes is like I'm just coming off of like a month and a half of being off call, and I'm like, I want to go back to work. Also helps like, keep me like passionate and excited and like
Mhm.
and readily available for my clients, but also for my kids.
What are you most proud of this far in your career? I know you've done a lot.
And yeah, and I don't even say that like I say that because I appreciate that. There's so many things to be proud of because not all of them are like external. Like I was so grateful to be in, the DC magazine Modern Luxury Dynamic Women issue 3 years in a row. And there are a lot of external things, right, that seem so powerful and impressive. But to me, it's like those separate. I want to separate. I want to say like acknowledging, balancing motherhood and being able to show up for other women because my kids are everything to me. But the things that no one sees are the moments when I am literally climbing into a hospital bed with a woman in labor and holding her and telling her she's safe and she is doing an incredible job, and watching like them persevere through some of their most challenging moments and stepping into motherhood with so much grace and grit, and being able to witness that and have even a small role in it. Truly, like again, it's not the external thing. It's nothing I can plaster on my website as an accolade. And I know it might sound so cheesy, but it truly is. Like none of the other stuff would exist without those moments.
Besides obviously your own 2 births, how many births have you been present?
Um, so I've been a doula since 2020. I will say, holding space for the fact that I offer in-person doula support and also virtual doula support. I have supported over 100 births, just over 100 births with virtual support and or in-person support. And then I've also had access to doing a lot of comprehensive childbirth education for women. And I often have, like, many of them will have touchstone support with me throughout labor. So the number's a little imperfect, but it's for in-person and virtual doula clients, it's just over 100.
Okay. You were mentioning earlier how in the early 20 it allowed you to sort of dedicate more time to Instagram and promoting the business and all, right? So from a marketing standpoint, Kaitlyn, what would you say currently drives the most traffic to your business?
Social media for sure. Oh, well, I should say Instagram. I joke that I don't deserve the title of millennial because I am not great with technology. I What's wild is I started on Instagram, I think, like, when it very first came out, maybe my junior year of college.
Okay.
So I'm like, I was around in like the archaic dinosaur era of Instagram, and my friends in college would make fun of me. Like, why are you doing that? Like, you're so invested in this Instagram thing. And on one hand, I loved it. I was like, this is fun. I'm, creating memories with
Yeah.
friends. But on the other hand, I was like, there's this thing that's going to be something. And now look at it, right? It's, I'm not perfect with it because I run a business and I'm a mom and I'm exhausted, and my hierarchy of priorities is very different. I don't have as much time to build content as I would love to. But even still, it has consistently been the biggest lead funnel. And I mentioned this earlier, I think a lot of it is not just because of the knowledge that I have and education and insight and experience. I think I've always just shown up authentically. I'm an imperfect, flawed human, but I keep it real because we all are. And I think people deeply appreciate that. And more with AI and all these things, like, people want genuine human connection. Social media has moved everything, like I referenced this earlier, right? Everything feels very salesy and very pushy and like gimmicky, or everyone wants you to buy something. And for me, I'm like, also mentioned previously, I'm not the best salesperson because I'm like, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of seeing hashtag ad. I'm sick of seeing click here to buy whatever. Like I get it. Like I want a disconnect from it. And I try really hard not to just push my services, even though I could, and maybe people would argue that I should. I really try to build true human connection, and I think people appreciate that.
The creating content, are you doing that all on your own, or do you have any help?
All on my own, which is
Okay.
why I rarely post any anymore.
It takes time. It takes time.
It's so much time. It's a full-time job, and like,
Yep.
well, I'm a single mom. I have 2 kids. I'm like, yeah, sure, I could hire someone to do it, but again, just the hierarchy of needs and priorities. I'm like, it's okay. That season will come back again. I trust in like the universe guiding the way, and I'm like, it was there. It's taken a little bit of a back seat. I show up how I can right now, and when I'm able to give more time to it, you know, it'll be more, more I don't know, prevalent, whatever, more pronounced in my world.
Yeah, yeah. If someone's listening to this and they're inspired to finally sort of take that next step and go off on their own and do whatever it may be. Maybe it's in the fitness, maybe totally different industry, not even health related. What advice would you give them?
Oof. You know, I there are a lot of things I could share. I want to what I will lead with, because I don't think this gets said enough, is to not be afraid to be different. Like, really, and I know, again, sounds a little cliche, but the thing is, like, I got in my head at many points, especially starting my career as a doula, like adding that element to my personal training business, because I did not operate the same way as other doulas. I'm not the crunchy gal, like, walking in the woods. I will do that, but I also am like right in the middle, right? I don't
Yeah.
demonize hospital birth or cesarean deliveries or interventions. I want to empower women. Um and a lot of people disagreed with that. I also had people like not accept the postpartum rehab, like not waiting 6 weeks until you go see your doctor for a crappy appointment that apparently gives you the green light to move your body again. I'm like, inherently, we are human beings. Again, the modern mom doesn't get to lay up in bed for 40 days. We have to move. A lot of us don't have, again, like maternity leave or built-in help and structure. And so I got a lot of heat for things that just were unconventional and not familiar to people at the time, but I stuck to my guns and it worked. And now people are implementing the same things, right? And so the imposter syndrome can creep up. You might be pushing the needle, you might be challenging people's ideas and concepts of what they, have ingrained in their brains to be true, but you're going to shape a narrative and empower people and inspire people. And ultimately, like, there's something for everyone. And your crew, the people who need you are going to find you because you have a unique voice. Um, and you is not going to serve you when you're setting out to be a small business owner and an entrepreneur. You have to like march to the beat of your own drum and lean in. And again, kind of the fake it till you make it thing, even if you're like a little nervous about it, even if it feels a little like scary at times, you gotta trust your gut, because there's a reason why you had the inspiration, even like that little gut check to say like, I need to do this. I'm going for it. And I think the people who have that, you're onto something, right? You don't have that little voice that's like, you got to take this and run with it if it's not true.
No, I completely agree with you. I think being your authentic self is your superpower. And just everything you said just reminds me when I started this show way back during around COVID times. I'm in commercial real estate. That's what I do. That's my career. And some of my colleagues I was working with in the previous firm I was with would be like, "What are you doing? Like, why are you wasting your time with this show? This has nothing to do with commercial real estate. It's zero." And I was like, just okay, okay, sure, I respect that. Okay, sure. And here we are now, over 200 episodes, and is one of I should have started earlier. I should have started earlier, but it was COVID and my business slowed down, and then that's why I stood up the show, and here we are. But
Yeah.
I agree with you.
It's, it's tough because like just socioculturally, like we're conditioned,
Mhm.
right? To just
Yeah.
looking outside of ourselves for approval or permission. But I joke that like I want to be with the rebel moms. I want to be with the rebels of the world, not even just the
Yeah.
rebels. And like, it's so much more freeing, right? And again, like we used to be the kids who were like, leave me alone. I'm just going to stay by myself because I'm afraid of getting in trouble or I'm too shy or whatever. And when you like break free from that and can like see how valuable that was, right? Of like, I can't speak for you, but it sounds like we had a similar kind of experience watching the growth. And gosh, I'm so proud of that little girl who like took chances and leaned into growing and challenging myself. But it's a culmination again of like every time you flex the muscle and like build a little bit more confidence, like every single time you did that, right? It gave you the, internal permission to be like, well, watch me.
Yeah, exactly.
That's impressive. And I love that.
Coming to an end here soon, Kaitlyn, what would you say is your biggest challenge with your role today with the Fit Doula?
Well, I think that right now it's a little bit more like the infrastructure piece, right? Of again, my kids getting older and I want to have more capacity to like be present with them. And the other thing is that like I want to be able to reach a wider audience and help women on a wider scale. And so I've have been working on like I kind of touched on this, like the next phase of the Fit Doula that's a bit more of a brick and mortar concept that would really recreate the village, so to speak, in metropolitan cities and bring all of the support that women need in the perinatal season under one roof so that my reach can be bigger because I can't help everyone, especially if I'm doing one-on-one services. And more women need access to support. Um, in their own unique ways, right? Whether it's preconception support or childbirth education or lactation support or support groups and community. And I'm just one person right now. So it's hard to show up and support as many women who as deserve support when there's just one of me. And so I have been in the process for the last year working on like and connecting with investors and starting to move this concept forward, which is a long road in and of itself. And trying to do that while also balancing, life and motherhood and the existing business.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I was going to ask next as far as what you're most excited about or what the next couple of years look like for you and the Fit Doula. So you were mentioning brick and mortar. So what are you thinking as far as having everything under one roof, like you said?
Yeah, well, again, the modern family unit is in, we're moving into metropolitan cities. Again, the village is kind of left behind back at the burbs or back at home, wherever. Many people don't have that built in or have adequate support or community, or even thinking about how in a city you may live 30 minutes from your pediatrician and another 30 minutes away is your lactation consultant and another 20 minutes is your pelvic floor PT. And then you have a newborn who needs to eat every 3 hours and all the things like it feels impossible. And a mom often winds up becoming the last person to be cared for. And in motherhood, we make a lot of sacrifices for our children, but I also believe that self-abandonment should not be an inherent part of motherhood. And so really it's trying to bring a lot of the most critical parts of support through the entire perinatal season under one roof so that we remove the hurdle of having to go all over for all the care that we need, because that's impossible most of the time, which ultimately would improve birth outcomes and postpartum mental health challenges. It ultimately improves relationships, between spouses. It ultimately improves, benefits the workforce. Women are better able to assimilate back into the workforce. So there's a lot of benefits to it, but really the big hurdles right now are again trying to reestablish community and identity and motherhood and removing hurdles for women to access those things that they need so badly to have more positive experiences in their journey to becoming a mom.
I know you said you have two little ones. So when you're not busy working, what do you like to do for fun in your free time?
Well, there's very little free time right now, but I spend a lot of my time all over the DMV. Um, and I also spend a week to 2 weeks a month in Nashville where I've been kind of exploring, expanding the business. And um, I, my horse, well, it's not my horse. I lease a horse with my horse trainer. I love hiking. I won't lie. I love dive bar with some darts and a margarita. I love live music. I really it's tough because again, those things are not riding this horse is, I will say it seems very much like a first world problem, but it truly saved me in so many ways in this past year. I've ridden intermittently throughout life and just, it's so grounding. I cannot think of anything else when I'm on a 1,200 plus pound animal. So it really allows me to kind of drop in and focus and leave my phone and be really present. And they're magnificent creatures. So that really is the number one right now of if I do get free time, that's what I'm doing. If I'm in Nashville and my kids are home, I'm probably having a margarita listening to some live music and playing darts.
Awesome. Great way to end it. If people want to learn more about you, Kaitlyn, and want to reach out to find out more information, where can they go to?
So my website is www.kaitlynwozniak.com. And my Instagram is at Kaitlyn Dineh, which is Dinneh. It's my middle name. And I'm not on any other social media platforms, so I don't know how to work them.
Just Instagram.
Just Instagram.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for joining me today. It was fun.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Take care.
You too.